Okay, so I will move this over to here once we start the session and move the pizza. So, and my husband should be here with the drinks soon. Did everybody have a good July 4th? And everybody happy times? And you said one of you guys said that you wanted to borrow for just this during the session. See how things look. Otherwise, 13. This is actually my primary test device. There's a reason for it. I have all the fancy new devices, but I know that if something works on dual core with a gig of RAM, and it was middle of the road from 3 years ago, if I program stuff, test it, works great, looks great on that, odds are it's going to work great, look great on like every single person's stuff. So.
But is one of these socket gen like available for Marshmallow or something?
I have no idea. I put cyanogen mod on a lot of my stuff because I can switch between operating systems without having to have new phones or watch version numbers and things like that. Yeah, I flash ROMs. I'll also set it up with like TWRP, which actually I have code in TWRP. It's cyanogen mod, but different things. Why does it do that? Okay, so I suggest them because if you don't want to run every single thing through an emulator and you want to see how something feels, you can have one device run multiple versions of Android, which is a pretty valuable thing when you start having, when you have an app that's got 50 million downloads. So. All right. Un momento. ¿Qué pasó? You have some. Not very chill.
Which class is it?
This is Android Study Jams.
Oh,
Is it? Yeah, I know Stephanie.
okay.
Thank you.
So. Oh, you need some help then?
Well, I just didn't know where we were, so I was assuming we were there. And I was like,
okay.
No, it doesn't seem right.
They've also got
about,
fresh paper and stuff.
leaving.
Wow, there's a lot less people than last time too. At least at this hour.
Usually there's a lot more.
Seriously, what happens when there's no more?
We have plenty of foods. I learned my lesson from the first time. 7 pizzas is not enough.
Gauging pizza is always challenging.
What? Oh yeah, it
Gauging
is.
always challenging.
It is a challenge, but we are consistently up to the challenge. The good news is the location that we're at, someone will always eat whatever's left.
Where's the contribution area? We're doing hand cheese.
Yeah,
Okay.
that also works.
I'll just hand it to you for a second if you're fine. So.
Okay, cool.
Usually your hands are full force.
And I have drinks coming with ice, but again, you can always get water area. Just a moment.
No,
People are just coming in late.
just how did the food?
What's life?
Yeah.
This is part of
Yeah.
I don't think this is part of
Oh, when you live.
I know some programming on
Supposing.
What language do you guys It's kind of significant. It's in the seas.
Yeah, Android and
Kind of the same thing.
cats aren't urban.
Is that like visual recognition or is that actual?
Basically.
That's interesting. Okay, so I don't know cats.
It's amusing. No, I just couldn't. I
Aw,
was trying to find
that's
out
so
here.
cute.
If I couldn't
Our
install
cat is only observed in
TV,
views.
a very specific version of TV on the thread.
Why are you and Jimmy Peter?
Just not.
Jimmy Peter.
I'm just gonna.
There's an animated series for
I'm
her.
just gonna go just use a little book. Which is forget about the 3-second delay. I would process.
Oh, please don't.
Maybe it's linked.
Please don't.
Tell the person is on taker. Click.
Or just a sign that says.
Bring back all of my worst memories of watching
This is.
But you need help like that. That's something.
You don't understand.
Okay, well, that's.
So
I'm actually
Android,
going to
that was,
include change.
do you want to set this to one next? Yes.
No, even worse than
It's
that.
collaborating on the picture of our cats.
So what this is,
Which
this
will
is
be
just that would turn to it, right?
long
And
as
the
it-
height,
And
we want to put this.
Alright, so I'm gonna at least move this. So this is over here. Okay. See, maybe, just a second.
So today we are blessed with the presence of Miss Jen Weingarten. You put it like that. Hey. She's another Android dev who has been doing this for a very long time.
For those of you who don't care for Diet Pepsi, here's Dr. Pepper.
And ice. Let's see if we can condense a pizza so that we can.
Not have it on somebody's desk, yeah.
Whoever Stephanie's busy or feel free to,
All right.
happy to help.
There's a spot. Okay, and if y'all didn't see, if you did the extra special ASCII art challenge, we have these wonderful, really cool, awesome Android plushies. These are fancy, different kinds. We have one that's like a caveman Android. They're all high quality. These originally retailed for about $25. You can't find them anymore. They're all like limited edition dealies. So if you did it, you need to come to me after class. We'll go through your code so I can verify that you didn't just take a picture and put it up. That you use things like relative layout, linear layouts, layout weights, text views, things like that. Now, what I do want to see from everybody is that you in fact did the homework of the birthday card app. Can I see screenshots, everybody? All right, I'm gonna walk around, and then you let me know if you want to be eligible for the, for people online, post your screenshots, and then maybe a paste bin of your layout code if you want to participate in the challenge portion. I will be able to probably hook up with you at some point here in DFW and give you your prize. All right, I want to see examples of things having been done. Aw, that is adorable. Happy birthday to my honey bear. And the fact that you did it in both horizontal and
It just
vertical.
wasn't.
Sometimes that's not true. Sometimes it doesn't work side by side. Okay, so you want to be eligible? And you don't have yours up? Do?
No. You didn't bring a dunce cap, though.
I didn't because I don't believe in making somebody feel bad. I'm here to encourage you,
Just out of
provide
curiosity.
motivation.
Just out of curiosity, I didn't get on ASCII, why did you?
The reason being is that ASCII art is something that requires that in order to do it right on Android, you have to be able to use multiple layout types so that it scales correctly and that it works for all different screen types. So that requires that you really go through the coursework that, yeah, go ahead. That you really went through the coursework and understand what we actually did in the class.
Alright.
Sorry about that.
You didn't do it? You guys don't get to make fun of other people. Okay, I saw you. I saw you. You had things. You had things. You have things. Okay, all right. So you are going for eligibility points. Nice.
Folks rode with them.
Doesn't matter if it's ugly, it's that it, well, I mean, it will later, but the point being that it does, I know, it's your perception.
Get diet or not diet?
Not diet.
Alright.
And you made it sing. Very creative.
I started selling it.
All right, let's see what your dad did.
Yeah, so I did Kool-Aid.
You did two different ones? Right. Ah, I like that. That's very creative. And you are going for the ASCII art challenge.
Yes, and it took me a really long time to decide between a regular parenthesis and curly brace. I'm really long.
It does. It can be. If anything, Slack, IRC, and various challenges have proven to us that it really matters how perfect you get those flipping table animations, right? All right, sir, show me what you got. Happy birthday, little cat. Scrupulous cat.
Mine's nothing special, just the most basic.
Doesn't matter. You still completed it. That's all that you're basically saying. Like, you know what? I went ahead, spent some time learning things, doing stuff, and I completed the task.
Well, yeah, I mirrored this one after actually I was trying some animated the animation sets, and they all required code. I was like, well, we haven't officially gone through that, and so then I was like, well, I need to do something, and fell back to this. So
Hey,
C'est
it
la
doesn't
vie.
matter. Oh, you also went for the ASCII art challenge. You did. I know. I saw. Y'all went for it. Okay. We have 13. Okay, we're good. We're good. And I don't think Jen went through the ASCII art challenge. No, not so much. Okay.
You need to look at that one, I'm sliding it.
Yeah. I want to see what some other people did.
Yeah, look at that last one.
Oh, that is fantastic. That is great. Jose, way to go. All right. Nice, nice. And if you want to go for bonus points, you can post your code up on your GitHub, and then you can show your own progress as we go through this. It's okay. If it's not perfect, it doesn't matter. Everybody did something different, which was fantastic. Nobody's looked the same. Nobody went for the same text. Nobody went for the same colors. Nobody went for the same aspect ratios as anything that we previously showed in the actual videos or as part of the work that we did in class. So, yay! Nobody copied. Yay!
Just made
Fantastic.
Andy Android way more famous than he already is.
Yep.
I think I saw like half a dozen.
Hey, man. They were just wanting. I think the interesting thing here is that Jose was going for the meta, an Android ASCII art inside of an Android on an Android program, or an Android prize. So what I didn't see is that any more than like 16 of you have actually completed this little thing here. The 5 things out. I need this in order to provide you with feedback on your 5 things. Yes. 5 things app. That is the goal, right? So if you have done it, raise your hand. You've completed?
Oh.
Okay, so there's not a lot of hands raised that should be raised. If you want to raise your hand online somehow, just like type like enter a million times, I don't know. I think there's a hand raise, like anime thing in there. So, okay, again, you don't want to be the guy who puts in the littlest amount. You can still get by with your 15 pieces of flair, but don't be this guy. Again, don't be this guy with 37 pieces of flair. You know what he looks like? He looks grotesque. He looks like he's trying too hard. He doesn't. Come on, we've all seen this movie. All right. So what I wanted to do is quickly go through like just 1 or 2 of the coffee break challenges. Hopefully you guys got some extra time after going through the practice set to just go through these small coffee break challenges that allow you to really just reinforce what we had worked on. But this is just to get you in the right mindset for where we're going next.
All right, great work. Let's do some coding questions. Look at the code here. One of these lines has an error on it. Find the line with the error and write the line number here. For example,
Find the line with the error. What is the line with the error, everybody? Okay, I didn't hear consensus.
Full screen.
Oh, full screen. Sorry. Sorry for my lack of full screenness.
Weight equals 1 is integer instead of string.
Yeah,
Well, it's not encapsulated, right? So it's not
it's not the
it's
quotation.
not stringized like we're in other code, right? Like we're used to seeing a string. So this is going to cause a problem. Let's see if that's right.
for example, if you think the error is on this line right here,
Okay.
the number 6 here. Hint, it's not on line 6.
It's not on line 6. So we did get that one. All right, let's get this next one.
Excellent work. All right, final question. Assume you're using the XML to the left and that you have a screen that is 600 dp tall. What is the height of the chai tea text view?
Okay, so what is the height of the chai tea text view?
100 dp. The chai tea text.
Well,
No, it's 100. Look at the top. It says it shows the Android layout height is 200 dp. So you only have 400 dp to work with.
So 200.
It's 100.
So it's 100 because of the weights.
Yep.
yep, you're right. Okay, fantastic. Everybody is playing by the rules. Everybody knows what's going on. All right, time to move on. Yay, we are starting lesson 2. Do we really need the intro? It's
So
short.
we're done with lesson 1, right? So if this is our student, she is now 19 at the end of lesson 1. What I want to do is like, okay, I want to just bring all of this thing together and not focus too much on lesson 1 anymore. If that's okay.
Yeah, we can move lesson 2 over.
Okay. So let's say all of this is lesson 2.
Yeah.
What should be some of the big ideas in lesson 2?
Well, I think we can split it up into 2 parts.
Okay.
And then what do you think we should do for the first?
Well, right here, we should add some interactivity to the app, right? So say there's a button on an app. You press the button, boom, something happens.
Yeah, that sounds good. And then in the second part, we can go into details of what exactly is happening and also learn about variable and methods.
So all of the technical jargon that sounds like magic right now, but will not be magic at the end of this lesson.
Exactly. And we're going to do this by building up a new app.
Wait, what? We're making a new app in lesson 2?
Yeah, it's going to be a coffee ordering app.
Or can we call it just Java?
Oh, okay, I get it. Yes, let's get started.
Okay, just a second. I'm grabbing cheesy bread. Apologize.
Oh, an autoplay.
Let's begin by creating a new project for our app. It will be similar to the Hello World app that you created with Lila early on in practice set 1. See if you can remember how to set it up on your own. Use these settings for app name, package name, and etc. so that your code will match ours for the rest of this lesson. Once it's done being created, make sure you can run the app on your device. It should look something like this. The name of the app is shown at the top in the app bar. Below that, we have the words Hello World.
Okay, so, not what I wanted. Thank you very much, Udacity, for your wonderful thing.
Let's begin by creating a
Okay. So, let's go back to what they want us to do. Okay. Okay. So, everybody create a new Android app template based off of these parameters. Go into Android Studio, go to the top left, select New Project, and create it with these same parameters. Everybody, did you already create it? No.
Yeah. I didn't finish.
What do you mean?
I kind of like just did stuff and then I try to add a spinner.
Don't go too far, okay. Does anybody need help with creating an app?
Yeah, it's just loading with Android Studio.
Still loading? So everybody see the parameters, target APIs and such. Yeah, so go to CMS numbers. CMS is where yeah. EMS. Dash. 109. 238. That is a DMS number, not members. Are you downloading?
No, it's just.
Oh, yeah, that's good.
It's connect up to DNS members in your
DNS member.
It's DMS dash 109 to create. You look at how it goes on your laptop. Figure it out. Alright.
Lowercase DNS dash.
So everybody created a new app with the same parameters. Because remember, I want you to actually create it. Create it with these things.
Oh, I did.
Oh, you already, okay. So you actually created, okay.
Look at launch.
Domain name, package name, empty activity template. That's it. Application name, just Java. Very simple. Anybody need help? Anybody still unable?
Yeah, my app ran.
Yay, everybody can hello world things. Okay. Sweet. Everybody online doing well? Everybody online cool? Got it? Great.
for app name, package name, and etc. so that your code will match ours for the rest of this lesson. This is what we're going to cover in lesson 2. First, we're going to show the quantity and then an order button. Then we're going to show the price as well. Next, we're going to add a plus and a minus button so that when you tap on either of these, the quantity changes. After that, we're going to take these buttons and rotate them horizontally so they show up like this for the quantity picker. And lastly, we're going to adjust the way that the price is displayed, and we'll also move the order button down to the bottom of the screen. This is what the app is going to look like by the end of lesson 2. Along the way, we're going to learn about Java concepts like variables and data types. That way, when we click on the plus or the minus button, we'll be able to update the quantity. Or if we click on the order button, we'll be able to calculate and display the price here. Now we're going to just focus on the first stage of our app and then slowly build up from there. I'd like you to plan how you're going to build up this layout. The app displays quantity, 0, and then an order button. If you're stuck, try going through the 3 steps for creating a layout that we went over in the practice set. Select the views you want, position the views, and then style the views. In this planning stage, I'll ask for you to write a couple words for each of these. It's generally a good habit to plan out how you're going to build something before you actually go and code it. Otherwise, you might get lost in all the details of the code. Which views do we need here? Do we need text views, image views, etc.? Step 2. For positioning the views, which view group will be the root view? Feel free to add other comments about how to position these views. Finally, for step 3, we need to style the views. Is there anything we need to do here? Write your comments below on how we need to change the views so that they look like this.
So, what kind of views are we going to need to make this possible?
A text view and a button. There's not a view for a button.
Text view.
Yes.
Oh, okay. I have to say 2.
Okay. What positional view group do we need to make this layout?
Linear layout.
Yes. Linear layout. Why would it be a linear layout? And what kind of linear layout? What orientation?
Vertical.
Vertical. Okay. Is this something that we could build in relative layout?
Yes.
Yes.
What would we do to build it in relative layout?
You'd have to assign IDs to each one of them and say below this one and below that one.
So you just brought up a thing with IDs. What's an important thing to remember about IDs?
Make them unique to each different individual element.
Okay. I like you do, Jay. Okay, why would we want to make them unique?
So you get so to make sure that you get that it doesn't get confused with any of their child's.
But why does each one need its own ID? Why does it need
People
an
get
ID?
mixed up with
So you can kind of reference them to each other? Or
Yes. Yes. When we're talking about like to left of and right of and aligned parent and all that other stuff, right? All right, let's keep on going. So when we're gonna just say linear layout, that's the simplest here. And what would we need to do to style these views, these 3 views? What would we need to put right here? Like what's a unique field that we're gonna have to put here?
Font family.
What?
Font family.
Font family could be one. Although these all appear to be the same font family, right?
Oh yeah.
So what's 2 unique things that we can put on this text view?
Oh, we can put text
Text all caps, that's one. What's another one?
text color. Like
Text color. Awesome. All right. Wait, there's a third one. What would that be? Text size. Yeah. What thing do we use to define text size? What kind of pixel do we use to define text size? SP. Yeah, scale independent pixel. And for this guy, what do we need for here? Kind of the same thing, right? Although we're probably not going to be using gray in the background. We're going to put black. And then for this guy, for the button, does it just come like that? Does buttons just come like that, or do we need to do something to it?
Buttons.
Probably change the text and
All caps. No.
and background color. Good. Okay, so we'll just go all caps because I don't really care what we write. Ha ha ha. Oh, select views. I forgot to put in text view. View. And button. It's actually checking us for no reason. Okay.
Looking closely at this screenshot, we have 2 text
I'm
views
going to
and
go
1
ahead
button.
and go with skip on this guy. Because this says back to quiz. Okay, so we'll go through build layout. Because we already went through this, guys. I want to say
Now that we've thoroughly planned this out, go ahead and build out this layout in your app. You'll need to find and modify the activity_main.xml file. The activity_main.xml file should already be open when you first create your project. If it's not already open, you can find this file under the layout folder, under res, under app, in the project view of your app, which lists all the files in your app. The design pane is open by default, where you can drag and drop widgets from this palette here over onto the app. However, I want you to use the text pane so you can write your XML here. At any point when you modify your XML, you can always select this content and reformat it. Across the top of Android Studio, you should see a bunch of menu items. Click on Code, and then you'll find an option to reformat code. And here's a keyboard shortcut if you're on a Mac. You can reformat the code, and selected text is fine. Just click Run, and then it automatically reformats your code to fix the spacing and the tabs. You can also select Rearrange Code. It modifies the order of the attributes here so that it's in the preferred order according to the Android code style guidelines. And now the code is a lot easier to read in this format. If you want a preview of what this code looks like, you can click on the Preview button here. And this shows what it would look like on a device. But this isn't a substitute for running it on your device, so you should always run it on your device periodically. Once you build out this layout, please also assign a view ID name on this second text view here that displays a 0. Give it a view ID name of @+ID/quantity_text_view. Use this exact name so that it will match our code later on. Remember that we learned how to assign IDs to views in lesson 1. This example was for a relative layout where we had a dinner party for our best friends and our frenemies. Also, the reason why we give this view an ID but not the others is because we will want to later refer to this text view so that we can update it to increase or decrease the quantity. For styling the views, there's a couple small changes. This text view here should have a text size of 16 SP and use a black font color. You can use the black system font color like we showed you in lesson 1, or you can use the black hex color, which we've included below. There's also 16 dp of space in between each of these views. I know that this is the first time that you're going to be adding a button to your XML layout. This is a really great opportunity for you to practice your Google search skills in order to figure out how to add a button to your layout. If you really get stuck, you can check the hint in the instructor notes. As you build this up, periodically run the app on your device to check that it's working as expected. When you're done with all of this, answer this question. What happens when you click on this button?
All right, guys. Are you okay?
Oh, I'm okay.
Okay.
I smell something good.
Well, you're welcome to a slice if you want.
I'm good. I just ate.
I know, pizza is delicious. If you haven't gotten any, you should get some. Because we have like Alfredo pizza, we got garlic parmesan pizza, we got deep dish and regular. All right, so let's put this sucker together. Let's see our layouts. All right, I'm gonna shoot these guys the. Yeah, everything is recorded online. So if you've missed a class, don't worry. It's okay. I'll help you through today. Yes, sir.
I have a really quick question.
Yes.
I put this bit of code up there, right? And then when I put it down here, it worked fine. But when I put it up there, it doesn't.
Does it cause a crash?
No, like it would go like down to -1.
Right. So what you should always, if it's less than 0, why would you do if less than 0, then it equals 0? You can't go less than 0. So what you can do is you can like disable the button. Disable. We'll go into that. You're a little bit ahead, but we'll get there. All right. There's better ways to do things. Just letting you know. Users need to be told what to do. Sometimes. Sometimes they tell you, but other times you gotta tell them. All right.
This is really straightforward. I'm still down, please.
Okay. Who still needs help with their views? Getting their views together. Put them buttons on. You don't want to wear a button. There. 1 second. Still going? Great. Leave. Is everything just really tired today? Y'all are like much more quiet and like reserved this time around. Did everybody like take a chill pill? Or is it just you're becoming that much more comfortable? We'll go with that much more comfortable, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
You guess. You guess. Are you how old are you? 13?
No.
No. You're 11, right?
No.
9? Something like that. Oh, you haven't hit teenage angst yet. Your dad is gonna love that. He's gonna have 2 of you at the same time.
Email us a lot.
The APK? The build?
Whatever you
Build, right? So if you want to email it to somebody, what you can do is you can go to build in and you have your app open. So build visible pieces or you can do build APK and then it'll show you where it is. So you can take that and use the debug APK. It'll be debug keys. There's all kinds of stuff there, but it will work. They can take it, install it onto their phone, and have it.
Oh, I see.
So you have to build. This is basically the build artifact that would go to like Play Store.
It's like the EXE.
It's the EXE, right? Except, there's no fancy keys on it and stuff, but it will work.
So you'd be able to just get this email.
Be able to install it. Right, and then they can. You want to give it to me. I understand. You want to show it off.
How do you want to get this little view to pop up on the screen?
Why don't we, what, is this what we're doing right now? No? Okay, well, let's get the other people up to date. Has everybody got it? Everybody, I've changed my mic and I lost it. Okay, so
I had all of them.
Leah, Pike, why don't you do wrap content? Well, you don't want to, so right now you don't need to make it fully, just wrap content on both. Wrap all your content, just wrap. Yeah, and then what you're gonna want to do is make that linear layout. You're gonna want to make that. So you have quantity 0. So what you're gonna want to do is use Android, a new line, and do Android orientation, and do vertical. And so now what you're going to want to do is put that 16 DP padding on all the views. So do Android padding on all of these and put 16 DP.
And just padding, not the.
Oh
You
my
don't
god,
have to,
this
because
ass
this all
here.
needs this. They just told you it's 16.
Look at this guy's ass here.
Not a problem. See, that looks pretty good. Hey. How much easier? Oh man.
I mean,
Before we even got to like The fact that this supports NDK is ridiculously good because when I first started, there was barely even an Eclipse plugin.
Yeah.
It was literally like command line build yourself. You have no idea what's going on. Yeah, Android Studio has only been around for like a few years. That's, yeah, and that was beta. So that was like public beta. So, but now it's been a production quality environment for the last like year and a half.
This one is probably very basic beginner, so it is, if you've got more experience, if you'd like to create
Yeah, I started in 1.5, 1.6 with the official release of the HTC one.
I understand.
So that makes it 6.5 years, although there's somebody on my team who's been doing this for over 7 years, almost 8. They started when Android first came out, so yeah, like everybody on my team has been doing this for like at least 5 years. It's great. We need to bring somebody who's like hired, we can mold in our image, that type thing. Okay. So, if you are running this on an actual device or an emulator, what happens when you click the button?
Nothing. Should do nothing.
Right, it's not going to do anything.
Mine still doesn't do anything.
But look at what it also does, because if you're running this on a fairly recent device, you're going to see an animation associated with it. It just doesn't do anything. Not just ripple effects, but depression effect as well. Yeah, if you look at the shading on the bottoms and stuff. What? So ironic. Okay, let me. You're getting there, man. You're gonna do it. In the front. Create a new one. Create a new one.
Yeah, it's
Okay. Is anybody not at this point yet? Raise your hands. Raise your hands. Okay. We're gonna start moving on. Okay. Animation. No action. Okay.
To build this layout, I open up the activity_main XML file. I know that I need a vertical linear layout to put each of these views in a vertical column. So I'm going to first change the relative layout into a linear layout. Immediately, it shows an error saying that the opening tag does not match the closing tag. So I can just copy this over and then paste it down here. Now the tags match. Next, I can add in the views. First, I have a quantity text view. So I'm going to take this text view and then change the text inside to quantity. Next, I have a text view that says 0. So I can copy the first text view and paste it below it. I'm going to change it so the text says 0 to match the screenshot here. The last child in this linear layout is a button. We haven't added a button before in our layout, so let's Google search that. If you open up a browser, you can search for button Android. This first link looks good. It's developer.android.com site. And here's documentation for button. We can ignore most of this text here. We scroll down to read the class overview. It talks a little bit about some Java code, which we haven't learned yet. But down here, we have some XML for a button. We can copy this and see what it does in our code. In our layout, I'm going to add a button below these two text views. I'm going to paste the code from the documentation here. And now, instead of the self-destruct string, I'm going to go for something a little friendlier like order. This last line we can also delete because we don't need it. Cool, so now I should have a quantity text view, a text view that says 0, and an order button. Let's run it on our app to see what it looks like by hitting this green play button. You can see down here that it's still building. This isn't what we wanted. It appears that our linear layout is actually horizontal instead of vertical. So let's make sure that we add the orientation attribute. I'm going to change this to say Android orientation equals vertical. That should fix the problem. So let's hit run again. Okay, that's better now. The 3 children are showing up in a vertical column. Now we just need to style these views so they look a little bit more like the screenshot we were given. From this screenshot, we see that the quantity text view is in all caps. In lesson 1, we learned about an attribute called Android text all caps, and it's showing up here in the autocomplete. If it shows up like this, you can just hit enter and it automatically adds it in the code here for you. We set that value to be true because we want it in all caps. The reason why it's better to use this attribute to capitalize the text is because if we ever want to change the UI so that quantity is in lowercase like this, all we need to do is just remove this attribute instead of going and changing this text. Next, for this text view that says 0, we should use a text size of 16 XP. Let me add that now. And then it shows up an autocomplete suggestion, so I just hit enter, and then I choose 16 XP for the value. We also want it to be a black font color. I'm going to use the Android system color for black, which is referred to like this. Cool, that takes care of both the quantity and the 0 text views. The order button is fine as is. It will automatically capitalize the text for you in a button, and the height and width are wrap content. We do, however, need to resolve this vertical space here. We want 16 dp of padding or margin in between the quantity and the 0 text views. We also want 16 dp of padding in between the 0 and the order button. You can implement this in many different ways. I'm just going to choose to add it as layout top margin for this button. And I'm going to add it as a bottom margin for this quantity text view. Feel free to do it a different way as long as it looks the same. The reason why I chose to do a bottom margin and a top margin is because I know that this middle area here is going to change later. We're going to change it to be a quantity picker with a plus and minus button, and I still want to have 16 dp of space between the quantity, title, and the picker. And same for the button. Okay, let's run it again now on our device. Cool, and it looks just like we wanted. The quantity text view is in all caps. The 0 text view is in black font color, size 16 SP. And we have the order button here. We also have 16 dp of space in between these views. Good job. Oh, and I almost forgot. The quiz also asks for what happens when you click on this button. Well, actually it does nothing, for now at least. Keep watching to find out what happens next. All right, enough talk. Are you ready to look at your very first Java file? Well, you actually have already done some work to create.
Are you ready to get your first Java file?
We're ready!
Yeah.
Ready! It's all right, guys.
That file. Let's go back in time.
Next time I'm
Remember
gonna
the
bring
wizard
nothing
we
but
used
sugar
to
and
create
pixie
our
dust.
project? We chose the empty activity template, which automatically created a new activity for us. It prompted us to provide a name for the activity, and we just accepted the default name of main activity. An activity represents a single focused thing that the user can do. Sometimes an activity is one screen in an app. Other times, a single activity can have multiple screens. Essentially, an activity is how you can display your layout and interact with the user. In this case, we also accepted the default name for the layout, which is activity_main, which is an XML file. So this main activity is displaying this layout file. In the Gmail app, for example, we have a conversation list activity. This activity displays a list of conversations. If you click on this hamburger icon, it opens up the navigation drawer, and you can switch to other views like the social emails, the promotion emails, or updates. Even though these go to different screens, they're all part of the conversation list activity. They all revolve around viewing emails. Gmail also has another activity called Compose activity. This activity is for the user to create a new email. So you can see how each activity is focused on a certain thing that the user can do. Here's another example. This is the Sunshine Weather app. This is actually the project that you can build up in the Android Fundamentals Udacity course. The main activity is the main screen, which shows the list of weather forecasts for the whole week. The detail activity shows the details for the weather forecast for a single day. And then the settings activity is where you can go to change the location or temperature units. So you can see how each activity is focused on a certain thing that the user can do. In our coffee ordering app, we're just going to have the main activity. Speaking of our app, the main activity for our app is defined in a file called mainactivity.java. Notice that the file extension, or the suffix here, ends in .java. That's how the computer will know that it's a Java file. By the way, on your computer, it will look something like this. This is simply a new file extension that you probably haven't seen before. Other file extensions you may be familiar with are .xml for the activity main XML file, or PNG or JPEG for image files. You can find this file on your computer by navigating through the files in your app in Android Studio. A lot of these files were automatically generated for us. So look in the app folder under Java, and then com.example.android.justjava. Just Java is the name of our app. There are also other files if you expand out the gray arrows, but we don't need to worry about them now. Okay, and then we can find main activity. Just double click on that to open it. I'm going to slide this view over so that I can see main activity better. Now here's all the code that Android Studio automatically generated for us for the main activity. Seeing Java code for the very first time can be scary and overwhelming. So don't worry, it's totally normal to not understand any of this. I felt confused when I first started off, and I still get confused when I look at files that I have never seen before. When you see this, you may just see a bunch of random symbols everywhere, with blank spaces and weird places. Some words might be recognizable in English, while others just don't mean anything to you. Don't worry though, we're going to understand all of this code soon. What we will do now is modify the code that Android Studio gave us so that our app does something when the order button is clicked. The new code for main activity is included in the link below in the instructor notes. We want you to copy over all of this code here. And then in Android Studio, go ahead and select all of this and delete it. Then paste the new version that we gave you. In the code that you just copied, notice that we included some comments as well. A comment follows the following format. It starts with these symbols and it ends with this, and it can go on for as many lines as you want. The purpose of a comment is to describe the code in some way, and you can describe it using plain English or any language that you want to use, and it doesn't have to follow the format rules of the programming language. So we have a comment up here to describe the purpose of the main activity, and we have comments on these methods here to explain what the individual methods do. If you want more information on writing comments in Java, just Google search. It's a really good habit to always comment your code so that when you go something in our app, we also need to make, so feel free to read the comments that we left here. Now, in order to make the order button do something in our app, we also need to make one more change to the activity name layout file. We need to add an extra attribute to the button XML element. The attribute name is onClick, and the value will be submit order. Use this exact name so that your code matches ours. Also remember the O because this method name is in camel case with no spaces. Don't worry about what this means for now. We'll learn more about it in the next video. Also, if you haven't already done it, make sure that this text view here has an ID of quantity_text_view. These changes will make your layout work with the new main activity Java code that we gave you. Go ahead and make these changes now. Modify the activity main layout file, and then replace the entire main activity Java file with the one that we give you, and then also run the app on the device to make sure that it still works. After all of this, if there are no errors, then can you tell me what happens when you click on the button? Write your answer here in this text box.
All right, guys. Let's do this. So you may have seen other ways to do buttons, because there's like literally 3 different ways to do buttons. This is just the way that they recommend to do buttons now. There's reasons behind that, and it has to do with some of the extensibility stuff. And they'll explain some of that in the next video. But let's do the things. So I sent out the link to the code for everybody to be able to copy and then paste. You okay? Yeah, everybody okay? You okay? You okay?
Yes.
You okay? You okay? Okay. Copy and paste. They gave you all of the work that you can do. Yes.
Question though, when I try to bring up the emulator, it doesn't come with any devices. Is there a way you can add something?
You have to actually make an emulated device for that. So let me see what it looks like when you bring up the Android emulator. Host. So let's see. If you hit play right now, play button, top, next to app. If you hit play, just waiting for ADB. Okay, so what you haven't done is you haven't created any virtual devices. So hit cancel. And you can see that there is a little left button, APG manager, Android virtual device, create a virtual device. I suggest going with the Nexus 5X. Next, no, either way, doesn't matter. Just go with that. No, it's okay. It's fine. It doesn't actually make it. What processor do you have? No. I'm betting it's an x86, x64. What year Apple do you have?
Oh, potentially.
Okay, all right, just hit. Yeah, I bet it's 60. Hit next. All right, so that's perfect. All right, so you've created your first virtual device. So when you hit play now, if you go to your original thing, hit play. Yeah. There you go.
Thank you.
Is anybody having trouble creating an emulator that doesn't have a device? Okay, I'll come over and help you. I like your rope shoes. They're very cool. I am crafty, but not that crafty. Not enough to eat. You need milk? Got it?
Yeah.
Okay, oh, sweet.
So even an AMD processor doesn't want to play.
You don't, it doesn't want to play nice. Okay, so what we want to do, go to the AVD manager. We're going to create virtual devices. So we're not going to pick the x86, we're going to pick the ARM, except we only downloaded x86. Okay, so what we need to do for you is we need to go to the SDK manager. We're going to do the launch standalone. There it is. That's just so that if we want to continue on this, we can just keep this as separate. Yeah, it's just a separate window. Makes it so it doesn't obstruct this. I actually just combined it. Okay, so we have the x86 is pretty much all we have to get. Okay. Yeah, you want to do ARM EAVI for the ARM system image right here. Create it, yeah. Things that are doesn't need to do all these things. Doesn't know why it wants us to do all this license. And then
Okay, now is that it?
what we'll do is create a APD. This time instead of selecting x86, you're going to select Okay. Yep. Picks up on what?
Should be like
Now, these whole ones are just learning. Telling you to extract the resource. That's not really it.
Okay, I was like,
Here, you can have it under it should be, yeah, text color. There it is. Pops right up.
It's only text size too.
Yeah, sorry, you're gonna wanna use the attributes that we defined.
Okay, so it's fine.
So we can do. I can never. So what you can do always, is you can just define text color. You can always find text color. Text size, code does not like to be made up. It's not, it doesn't know what you mean.
You know what those are the two that is.
Yep, and so it told you in the build errors, those didn't exist. Your fancy things. Okay, and then also for this top one, you're probably gonna wanna say, like, text color gray, so you're gonna wanna do it text color. Okay, I've got. Do you really want to, they can tell you how to do things? Still an idiot, it's okay. All right, so.
You do this clean or you double like somehow I don't understand.
Well, sometimes if you just don't know why it's not going, just hitting clean and rebuild can just fix it. I always want to see what Gradle gives you at the bottom of here to make sure that you build without errors. You are non-error.
Okay. I just want to look back at the chair and
I'm applauding that you did that in field basic. That's
there's like it's like a half inch heel.
doesn't matter. There's a heel. There's a heel involved. Versus me, I'm wearing like a zero rise, like minimalist runner. I don't run. I just like the way that they look. This is a magical mystery. It's Dallas Makerspace. It's a community-owned shared. It's nonprofit. It's the board of directors. There's a number here. It can be whatever place you want it to be. Some people have like homework worked out and they just work out of here. We have a lot of like artists that their workspace, and then also the vast majority of our people are who would come in after work or during lunch. Like our blacksmiths, a lot of them are like senior software devs that are massive workers. Boom, boom! Look at that. Yes. I'm sorry to come back. All right. Is anybody else still having an issue? Everybody got it? Everybody fantastic? The issue solving? Can I get a yup? Together. 1, 2, 3.
Yeah.
All right. I know. We tried. We tried, everybody. We can do this. All right. So what happens when you try to click the button? Whole lot of
Nothing. The function's not defined yet.
Function's not defined yet. Nothing.
It's gonna give, you have to say nothing, but at the literal or zero on the screen.
Yeah, I was gonna say, do you know how to type English?
Like what? It's gonna say what you
We don't
trying to
like
do.
your slang. That's what they're gonna say.
Yeah.
Why is it taking?
That's why it's taking extra long. It doesn't know how to handle. It doesn't know how to handle this.
Capacity system.
You did, that was like a SQL injection with your single quote there.
No, I think there's a checkbox I have to check.
We're gonna try again. No, there's no checkbox. I think it's something wrong with just type in nothing or something.
Doesn't like me. It doesn't like me. It just hates me in lots of very weird ways.
And these are compromised. I'd say it equals.
Doesn't like when I say. Doesn't like me. Wow, all of a sudden the internet got real slow. Okay. No, it doesn't do nothing. Look at the code. Look at the
Oh, did
code.
they already have us do the display one or whatever it was?
Yeah. What does it? Okay. So,
I don't know.
what does it do?
Does it display 3 or something?
Display one, display the number one.
Display 0?
It increases.
Yeah, but what is it?
It goes from 0 to 1.
Just modify the activity main layout file to add the on-click attribute here, and you've copied
I
over
don't
the
know why
version
their
of
volume
the
keeps changing.
then click this green run button. When the device chooser pops up, this option is correct, and I'm gonna click use same device for future launches. And now we have the app running on our device. To answer the quiz question, what happens when you click on the order button? Well, it actually updates the quantity value here to be 1. Exciting! Now let's understand what's going on behind the scenes to produce this change in the UI. Hooray! You just made your app interactive for the user. Before, when you tap on the button,
You have written code that does
but now with
things.
some code changes, when you tap on the button, it actually updates something on the screen. Great job! Let's try to dig deeper into what you just accomplished. First, you added a new Android on-click attribute on the button XML element. This means when the button is clicked on, then it will try to perform, or execute as we say in Java, a set of instructions that have been named submit order. Okay, going into the main activity file that we gave you, I know there's a lot of weird symbols and words on this screen, but all you need to know now is that this is a method and it's named submit order. A method can contain multiple lines of Java code, and this translates into a set of instructions that the device can understand and perform. If there are multiple lines of code in this method, the device would perform the first line first, and then the second line, and so on until the bottom of the method. The reason why we give methods a name is so that we can easily refer to it later. For example, in the XML, we can refer to the method submit order now. It's sort of how I have a name, you have a name. If you had a pet, you would also give it a name so that you can easily refer to it. So in code, if we have a bunch of statements that we want to refer to, we can put it inside a method and then give the method a name. So remember in lesson 1 how we told you that XML has very specific syntax rules that determine whether something is valid XML or not? Well, Java has similar types of rules for determining what is valid Java code. For methods, the statements inside of them must be contained within this opening squiggly brace and this closing squiggly brace. Up here, this is also a method called onCreate. The statements inside this method are contained within this opening brace and this closing brace. And lastly, there's this method, which is called display. The code statements inside of it are marked off by this opening brace and this closing brace. You'll also notice that there's also an opening and closing brace for the main activity. All the functionality of the main activity is defined within this opening and closing brace. So far, this main activity contains 3 methods inside it. So after you declare a method, which means defining the method, then you can actually use that method. In this example, we declare the display method and then we use it on this line of code where we call it by its name. So this is where we declare the method and this is where we call the method. So to summarize, when the button is pressed in the UI, then it triggers the submit order method to be called. Then we execute each line of code in the submit order method from the top of the method to the bottom of the method. In this case, there's only one code statement in there, so we just run that. Okay, now let's look at this line of code here that says display 1. The reason why I picked this line of code is because it seems like the number inside the parentheses is what gets displayed on the screen here. So when I click on this order button here in the UI, then it triggers the submit order method to be called in the main activity. Then we perform this line of code here that says display 1. And that updates the screen to show 1 here. So if I change this to be 2 here, what do you?
Whoa, what just
Now
happened?
when I click on this button, it shows 2. Clicking on,
What did it just do? Please tell me that the thing didn't go out. Is the Epson still on? I don't think so. Just a second. Okay, there it goes.
What?
I think so, yeah.
What is that?
I have no idea.
Or TV, so it's like. Just kidding.
Let us figure out what is going on with, oh wow. Something just went very awry.
How's the receiver doing now?
Receiver's fine. On the correct thing. There we go. Hopefully this isn't becoming dodgy. That's the best I can hope for. All right. Okay. Well, crisis averted, everybody. All right, so what I want you to do is try to change the number. And what happens when you press the button and the number, and why? Why does it change? What happens? What is this?
Well, it just displays like whatever.
But if you put something that's not a
The function calls right here, so.
you can't order B's of coffee. You can only order numbers of coffee. At least in English, We're assuming that everybody here is using English. All right. Let's see how everybody's going. Are you finally up? Are you finally up and going?
Oh, no, you tell me what you're watching.
So I posted it into the Slack channel. Go to the general, scroll down to the bottom, there's the line.
He copied the
There you
case.
go, right there. That's the Java code. You actually have to create the XML layout. So you have all that. Where's the XML layout? No, they don't give you the XML layout. So that's in those classes. Okay, so what you need to do is you need to add another, you need to make that text right there, say quantity, instead of hello world. And you might want to give it the parameters Android and
Yep, it says
Android. Okay. Hit enter. Android. Hit enter. And then true. Yay. Okay, so it just made that in all caps. So make another text view. And put in the number instead. 0. Okay. And then put buttons next kind of view. What you want to do is also change this from a relative layout to being a linear layout. So that's the main group. What? Button. Yeah, just button. There you go. Hit delete. All right. Now top.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to how this works.
Okay, so you want to make this a vertical. So you have to do Android orientation vertical. Orientation, yeah. And then vertical. Yep. All right. So what you want to put in here is Android margin, layout margin, Android. Okay, so hit enter. Layout, margin bottom, right there. So you're going to make that 16 dp. Okay. And then go to the button. You're going to change that to border. And the text. Change the text first. Border. You don't have to put all caps there, but put and here put Android margin top. Margin top.
Right.
There. Put 16 dp in there. Okay, so now you've pretty much got it. But what we also need to put is the color and the on-click. So you're going to put Android on-click. Yeah, Android on-click. Yep. Submit. Yeah, there you go. And for this this up here, you're going to want to make that gray. So Android text color. And you can do add Android. Color. Add color and then do gray. There you go. Perfect. You've made it. But you know what else you can do? Just give this an ID. Yeah, you can. It's not really necessary yet. But Android, yep. ID. And Android, nope, ID, there you go. And then let's see if it instantiates anything in the main activity. Not as of yet. So, yeah, you want to give an ID to that text view. So copy that line. So go back to this guy. In this text view, give that an Android ID of what you just got. Paste. There you go. And you can assign that button a random, you can just call it ID button. We're not using it right now, but there you go.
So this is the only link from this part of the code from Java to XML?
No, it's inflating that activity right here. So you're setting that content view. It's inflating that XML so that we see it attached to this activity. This is the view for this activity. So this right here is actually that text, so that when you hit the button, it actually, so that submit order does, based off of that view that we tapped, actually runs display 1, which our thing is display with a number, and then it sends that number to that text
view.
view.
The routine that they have given us. Okay, it's not HTTP.
No, it's not. It's so when you see 1 as a number, it's going to change when you hit that button. It changes it from 0 to 1. You see why it does that? You
We
see
have
why?
not picked like high plus plus or you intermediate, right?
We're not incrementing, we're literally just setting the value. So that display, we say, it finds the text view that gave PID, quantity text view. Then it says quantity set text to whatever the number is we put in here. Sets the text of that, of this text view that is inside of this layout.
Because she's going too fast.
I know, it can go a little fast. Does anybody suck?
Is there a way to go back and look at what version is the case? The old version of API, right? Create the project. I'm not supporting it.
So go to Android Manifest. So I want you to double tap Shift. Shift twice. Manifest. Manifest is the destiny. You're going to see Android Manifest. App source main right there. Tap that. So you put a set a target? Doesn't look like you set a target. You created the app. It is possible to do.
I just follow along what they were telling us to do.
I guess you missed that part. So you have to set the target API. So in that top of the manifest, you can put it anywhere in that line or make a new line. And you can just put in like target. I'm gonna have to remember. I'm gonna have to remember because I can't always remember all the parameters that go into all of those. There's so many like settings, things that are possible. But if you want to target, it's not important to target an API at this point. It really isn't. Okay.
You can also do it in Gradle, Stacy.
We are gonna go through.
Oh.
They're gonna explain what things mean as you get to them. Has everybody got it? No? Yes. Still not good?
I don't know how to do that. Talking to API.
Yeah, it's not important right now. You can delete that, but. Okay, so if you hit run, can you get it to change? If you just
need a. I thought things kind of red.
Okay, so that's a virtual device issue, maybe.
Also, you can change it when you have to Gradle. You can target.
Right. You can do it.
You're speaking Greek, yeah. I get what you're talking about.
What?
So this is a virtual device. Does it ever come up?
It takes a while.
Why don't you copy paste what it has in red text to me in the Slack channel when it comes up?
Go to the Slack.
Yeah, go to the Slack and then paste whatever comes up that's in red text. All right, is everybody else okay? All right. In the interest of time, we'll say yes. Woohoo!
Okay, hopefully you had a chance to experiment with different numbers. Earlier, I showed you how to change it to display 2 on the screen. Now let's try this big number. Cool. So now when I hit the order button, I have so many cups of coffee, I don't even know what to do with. Now that you've modified your first line of Java code, let's see what else we can do. We can actually do some math expressions. And if you don't like the thought of math, well, the good news is that Android actually does the math for you. You just have to come up with a problem. Say you have 2 people, and each of those 2 people wants 2 cups of coffee. Now this will display the total amount of coffee that you need to get them. We run it on our device, and then we hit order, and then we see 4. So you see how we can type in math expressions and it will automatically solve it for us. We can also do even harder math expressions, like things we wouldn't even want to calculate in our head. For example, say there's a whole group of Android developers and they're really thirsty. Say they each want to drink 3 cups of coffee each because they're not morning people. And then we also want to throw in some extra cups as well. That's a lot of coffee. Let's see how much that actually turns out to be. Hit the order button and it says 59. Interesting. I guess developers do write better code when they have a lot of caffeine in them. In a moment, I'm going to have you type in your own math expressions here. As a heads up, if you run into any errors, for example, if you type a letter accidentally, then you'll see a red error show up on the right-hand side here. The error says it cannot resolve the symbol A, because A is not a valid number. Here's another possible error. If you accidentally type that multiplication symbol multiple times, you would get an error here. In this case, it would be more helpful to hit undo, and then your code would work again. As we mentioned in lesson 1, you can try to read the error message first. Sometimes the error message doesn't exactly pinpoint the problem. You can also compare it to working code. We just showed you an example of math expression that worked. You can also try to hit undo to retrace your steps, or you can always ask for help. Okay, now it's your turn to try to come up with a really hard coffee order for the device to try to calculate. You can experiment with different math expressions. Here's an example of one. As you can see, you can use different symbols here for addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division. These are what we call arithmetic operators. If you ever need to refer to this later, you can always search for arithmetic operators Java. This page lists the summary of all the different operators in Java. And here are the arithmetic operators listed. If you want, you can always learn about other operators as well. For this quiz, though, we're just going to focus on the arithmetic operators. The reason why we call this an expression is because it's a bunch of symbols and numbers that eventually evaluate to a single value. And this expression is evaluated according to the order of operations, which you might have learned in math class. If there's anything in parentheses, it evaluates that first to be 4, and then it does the multiplication and division parts from left to right. I don't actually know what this evaluates to, but you can try it in your app. Once you've become comfortable with trying different math expressions, try this problem. I want you to display the number of coffees that you would need if there are 77 Android developers who drink 2 cups of coffee each, and then one straggler walks in late and needs a cup of coffee too.
Let's see. And then give me the number. Give me the number.
They want
I'm
you to
very
type in
happy
the
that you want to do
expression,
this.
not the- They want to give you the expression, not the number.
Right, you'll be able to solve it when you hit yes. Do not bring up a calculator. Put it in your code. Do it code-wise. Why do we want to do it code-wise?
So we learn.
Because calculators are very good at calculating things, and what you carry in your pocket is essentially a very fancy calculator. All it does is it adds and subtracts ones and zeros to make things. Well, actually, it doesn't have zero, but that's a thing. But it all runs in ones and zeros. So all it does is add and subtract consistently. Where is it? Like a mosquito. All right, so what's the number? What is the number?
You're supposed to type in like the equation.
Yes, you're supposed to type it in as a math expression. And then
No,
hit the order button.
Up there.
Yes, I have to type in a number that somebody gives me.
No, I think it's asking you to type in the expression that is needed. Because when I did it, it said an expression.
77 times 2 plus, if I can remember. So, and what might we want to do so we make sure that our order of operations happens the way we want? Yeah. Woo! Does that work? Is that what it wants?
No, we have to add in display.
Yeah, they want you to put it into the passing the display method.
Yeah. So what would this display on the display method? 77 times 2. What?
Fund line shows $150. No, you're just saying this.
No, you have to add so 7 plus 7 is 14, right? Oh, we get somebody coming in.
Whatever you wrote earlier, just add a display.
Okay. Can you give us the come back?
I can only give you what you guys give me as the answers.
Display, left parenthesis, 77, asterisk 2 plus 1 in parentheses. And semicolon.
Actually, my operation is just
Semicolon, I think.
What's the semi? You semi-tron. Yay, okay, cool.
Excellent, great work.
And here's the solution.
Number 1
We
best.
call the display method, and then in parentheses, we put the math expression. We want 77 people times 2 for the total number of coffees for these 77 Android developers, and then we want to add 1 for that straggler. We also remember the semicolon at the very end of the line. Now I can enter this into Android Studio. I'm going to highlight what was already in parentheses and delete that. And then I'm going to type 77 times 2 plus 1. Then I run the app. When the app launches, then I just hit the order button, and then it automatically tells me how many cups of coffee I need for all those developers. I want you to build up this layout on your own. You'll add one text view for the price header here, and then another text view to show $0. Also assign the second text view a view ID of price_text_view. The reason why I asked you to add an ID is because we're going to need to reference this view later so that we can update the price. And while you're at it, also make the style of these two text views similar to the quantity text views. In terms of vertical spacing, we also have 16 dp in between these views. In order for the price field to also update, we're going to need to make some changes to the main activity Java file. We'll give you a little more help with that. We're going to provide you with a new method that you can add in the main activity Java file. Open up the gist in the link provided in the instructor notes. By the way, a gist means a snippet or a short region of reusable code that you want to share with others. In this case, we went to the GitHub gist webpage and we created a new gist with this code that we wanted to give you, and now we can just share this link with you and you can get the code. For this snippet, we're going to select the whole thing and then copy it. Remember to include the comment up here, which is a note to the reader, and this closing brace down here. Now we're going to paste it in the main activity Java file. I love free code. Make sure that the braces still line up after you paste it. Braces are a pain, whether they're in your app or on your teeth. You can get a ton of errors if your braces don't line up. For example, if I paste this code block right down here, then I get an error saying class or interface expected. The reason is because this method is hanging out in the middle of nowhere. Really, we want it to be inside the main activity, between the opening and the closing braces of the main activity. So let's copy this and put it before code to display the price. When you method and even the main activity. This is the opening brace for the main activity, and the closing brace is highlighted in blue all the way down here. Now, unfortunately, we still have another error here. If I look in the sidebar here, it says, cannot resolve symbol number format. Number format is actually something provided by Android in order to help format numbers. In this case, we're trying to format the number, which is the price, so that it has the $ or whatever local currency you're using. We need to add an import statement for this because currently Android Studio can't recognize what this is. To resolve this, I'm going to show you how to turn on auto import. In the menu across the top of Android Studio, click on Android Studio Preferences. This opens up the preferences for Android Studio. There's a ton of preferences that I've never changed, but if you ever need something, I just search it using the search box. So I'm going to type in auto import. Now it shows the settings for automatically importing things in XML and Java. I want to check this box here that says add unambiguous imports on the fly. This phrase may not mean anything to you, but that's okay. This phrase probably sounds really confusing. All it's doing is telling Android Studio that it's okay to automatically add some additional lines of code in our app, specifically import statements, if it knows what we're referring to. Let me show you. Well, actually, it already did it for us. It assumed that when we said number format, we meant this one and it was correct. So it solved the problem for us automatically, which is great. Okay, at this point, if you run the app, then when you click on the order button, then the quantity changes, but not the price. We need to modify the submit order method so that it updates the quantity as well as the price. So let's add another line of code. I'm going to call the display price method, and I'm going to say that the price is 2 cups of coffee times $5 each. The reason why our coffee is $5 each is because we imported Arabica beans from Ethiopia. But anyways, we're going to let the device do the calculation for us because we have 2 cups of coffee at $5 each. By the way, when I refer to dollars in this lesson, feel free to swap it out for your own local currency. There's no $sign in this math expression. It gets added on later in the display price method. But don't worry about the details of the display price method. We're going to be going over that in lesson 3. For now, just focus on the math expression that you're going to use to calculate the price. Also remember the semicolon at the end of each statement. Otherwise, the semicolon monster is going to come and get you and give you a red error. For example, when you remove the semicolon, then you get an error that says the semicolon is expected. Oh, and to be extra clear, the semicolon key is this one right here. It's not the colon, it's the semicolon. All right, so when you finish everything, you should have 2 more text views added for the price here. You should have modified the main activity to include the new method we gave you, and you would have also modified the submit order method to add a new line of code to display the price. When you run it on your device, it should look something like this. It starts off at 0 quantity for $0. When you tap on it, there's now 2 coffees ordered for $10. Feel free to experiment with different values for quantity and price. If you want to charge $10 for a cup of coffee, you can go right ahead. Make sure you switch it back to 2 cups of coffee at $5 each so that it matches our code going forward. Check these boxes when you're done.
Right.
Did you make that full screen?
It literally won't let me. Right, so I gave you guys the display price method. So you need to add those 2 text views, include the new display price method, and then add the code right after the display method in the submit order method. Everything is methods and functions. Functions and methods. Alright. Still having an issue with your emulator? So, okay, so open the APD manager. So, that thing? Yes. Okay, touch that. Click it. Double, like 2-finger click. So you can edit. Okay, it's already running. Close it. Close the existing one. See what we can here. So close that. Close it. Okay, so what I want you to do is press and hold with 2 fingers. So right click. This. And right click on the Mac. So we'll go with this. No, that won't fix your problem. Okay, let's see, show the answer. So here, we want to put like just 536. You don't have enough RAM to run this. We're going to make this new one. That's right here. So let's do that. And this one will have a lot less RAM. Hopefully it will be small enough to actually run. How big is how much RAM do you have on this MacBook? That would be probably the reason.
I'm not seeing a hill running here.
Yep. So the problem was that you specified more RAM in the creation of the emulator to be given to the emulator than you had on the laptop available. Well, for how much RAM you have, yes.
Right.
2 gigs is not a lot.
It's not bad.
Yeah, not so much. Actually, I burned through mine even at 16, so yes. Have you subscribed to our Slack channel?
Yeah.
Yeah, so what you want to do is send me an email from whatever email you want me to send you an invite. So child of the heart. And say Slack. And yeah, and then give me whatever email you want me to send the invite to. And to join. It's okay. It's all right. Since you only have 2 gigs of RAM and you're running on a MacBook Air, a while.
Just wait for it.
Yeah, because you're basically running a little mini computer inside of your computer. So, same thing if you were to run like a Linux, like virtual machine, that's exactly what you're doing. Okay, cool.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
How was this?
So you can go to your preferences. Left. You can change. There. Right there. Just follow those instructions.
Okay, and one more thing is.
Another thing you can do in there. So and one thing you always have is it tells you what's going on. You can kind of just click it, and just wait a second. Usually it pops up a little. Okay, so you can hit Alt Enter, Alt, and it imported it for you.
Oh, does it? Insert the line here?
At the top. So up here at the top, sorry, give it a little bit differently. So what you can see is that it imported it for you right here. So you can do auto import, or you can just like click it and it'll tell you like Alt Enter, Command Enter, whatever it is. Hey, would you like to auto import this?
How do I set up my computer? Because when I configured this application, last summer, it became version blah blah blah. Now when I press right here, so it's creates which device and which API version.
Nexus 5X works. It's next. Okay, and you haven't downloaded anything other than Arsenal, so you just smartphone. Just hit next.
Oh, no.
And hit next again. Oh, finish. And it just creates a small virtual device.
So I made some changes.
With that API version. So it's this will be 6 API version. So whatever code, whatever version we use.
It doesn't matter in this case, because you're just making it look good. Alright, it'll start up. It's going to start the Android virtual device. It will eventually, yeah. It's going to start it and then bring it up. Cool.
It doesn't automatically run the gas.
What?
It doesn't automatically run.
No, it's the first time you like run it, it's probably not gonna pop up with the app on the very front. You can hit play again to build it, and it might pop up. So,
So I can't find it.
okay, so hit play from your Android Studio. Play. And then hit yes. Okay. Okay. Yes. Yes. And then bring up your Android emulator.
But it's low.
And then it should just run it unless it's an error. Yes, sir. You're gonna want to go with the error. I think just the job will not be the videos. Sometimes there's many. Right, is anybody stuck? Anybody got it?
So if I get a USB cable, I should be able to enable this.
Yes, what you'll want to do is enable developer options.
Yeah, I did that.
Okay, and you plug it in, it'll show up as a thing you won't have to use.
This,
as an emulator.
this detects automatically or this we need to add?
It will detect automatically as long as you have the drivers installed for your Windows machine. Yeah, and if you've plugged in your phone to that computer and transferred music to it at some point or done something with it at some point, it probably already has it installed.
Yeah, I installed separate ADB driver because there's a phone plugin available to control the phone.
You can, if it has a problem, let me know. Send me a message on the Slack channel. I'll try to help you through it. Samsung, what Samsung is, and it's usually a pain in the butt.
I've been using Mac for so long that I don't forget about the driver.
I've been a Linux user full time for like 5
You're
years.
like drivers, I do that all the time.
Configuring things, rule sets, what? Yeah. I do like the fact that if something is broken in Linux, you can always usually fix it. Yeah, although I will admit, I don't mind. Okay, so I like Mac as long as I can install, as long as brew and backports exist. As long as I can run like X Windows on Mac, I'm fine. I do like the fact that I can run most major software packages.
I like it for most things, but I didn't know that everyone started to use this.
I don't think so.
It's like, hey, I want to.
Now they have proper regular keyboard and HDMI. I hate Mac. I hate Mac. You know why? Because you blow on it while it's on your lap. While it's ready. It's so, power bricks they have are freaking awesome. I have mine in a coiler thing. This is going to manage 8 MacBook. Expensive, terribly priced, never lasts more than like a year.
Some people are too shy to ask.
To me, there's too much.
Yes. I agree. Except for there's a lot of.
Let me show you mine.
Happen to. If you have or ruined backwards, you can get every single Linux command line from next to utility running like that. No, it doesn't. You can uninstall it. You want to?
That's why.
Yeah, I agree with that, but also there's certain things that are nice, like having major software packages run without code. do some weird stuff with like wine and things like that. Don't have the nicest part. Granted, my day-to-day life, I'm 100% I get all my things at the time. So it really only comes down to like stuff that has to do with work. Like, why do I need Microsoft Word? Microsoft Word is wine. Like somebody has to use some like font package and weird setup that's only editable in Microsoft Word. Okay, is everybody good? Everybody got everything? Nobody needs help? If you need help, let me know. So I need help. I need help somebody. Okay. All right, so we are going to click the boxes. The iCloud keeps yelling at me. Okay. Woo.
First, we need to modify the activity name
Okay, we're
layout
gonna
so that we
skip.
can add the text views to display the price.
Okay, Catherine, our app is coming along,
Yeah,
but there is one major problem with it.
what's the problem?
Well, it only orders 2 cups of coffees.
What's wrong with 2 cups of coffee?
3 is better than 2, 4 is better than 3, sometimes I need more.
Okay, I get it. You need more coffee. So what I can do is just change the code so that instead of 2, it just says 3.
Okay, so in our code here, we will need to change the number of cups of coffees here and here.
Yeah.
So what if I want 10 cups of coffees for myself and my friends later on?
How many friends? Well, okay, we need something else then.
Yeah, we need a better solution.
How about, oh, I know, we can use variables.
Variables? As in something that varies?
Yeah, a variable doesn't have a fixed value. You can think of a variable like a box, like this.
Okay.
Yeah, this is a variable, it's a box, and you can put a value inside of it.
It says int.
Yeah, int stands for integer.
Okay, so you can put an integer or a number inside of this box.
Exactly. And you can even give it a name.
Let's call it number of cups of coffees ordered.
Okay. We could pick a long name. Order. Barely fits.
Okay.
Okay. So now we can refer to this variable using this name in the code instead of putting the value 2.
Okay.
And later we can also update it if we want. So let's put the value inside now. How are we going to do that?
Well, I have some Post-its.
No, what did it just do?
Those come from
Let's call the number of cups of coffees ordered to be
What is
2.
round 2.
1 for me and 1 for my friend Catherine.
Thank you. So now we have a variable that is called number of coffees ordered and it holds the value 2.
Let's implement this in the code.
Before, we were using a literal value to represent the quantity of coffee cups ordered. A literal means a fixed value, like the number 2. Technically, the 5 and this 2 are also literal values, but we're just talking about using literals for the quantity right now. So if we say the quantity is 2 cups of coffee ordered, then when we calculate the price, we have to do 2 times 5, since each cup is $5. If we want to charge the customer for a paper cup, because they didn't bring their own cup and they like to waste trees, then we charge them $2 per cup. So that's 2 cups times $2. When we use a literal, you can see that it's not ideal because we have to keep repeating the quantity number over and over again. On the other hand, we can use a variable to represent the quantity of coffee cups ordered. So if we say the quantity is this variable called number of coffees, then when we calculate the price, we can just use that variable name, number of coffees, and multiply it by $5 a cup. To calculate the charge for the paper cup, again we take the variable name, number of coffees, and we just multiply it by $2. So the difference between these two is that instead of the actual literal value, we use a variable, and then the value of that variable will be substituted when we actually evaluate this expression. So when we go and calculate the price, we just have to go check what this value is before we multiply it by 5. The one additional step that you need to do when you use a variable is in the beginning to set the variable number of coffees to have an initial value. In this case, we set it to have an initial value of 2, which is also a literal, but this time we only use the literal in one place instead of in multiple places. The end result is still going to be the same because number of coffees will map to the value 2, so the quantity will still be 2, the price will still be 10, and the paper cup charge will still be 4. The real advantage to this approach is that you can change the variable value at any time. Say I want to change the number of coffees to be 3. I just need to change it in one place here, and then everything else is still accurate. The quantity is still the number of coffees, which now has a value of 3. The price is now number of coffees times 5, and the value is 3 times 5. And the paper cup charge is still number of coffees times 2, which is now 3 times 2. If we were using a literal, then we'd have to change the quantity to be 3 here. We'd have to update the price calculation to be 3 times 5, and the paper cup charge to be 3 times 2. So when we use a variable, we don't have to refer to the specific value each time. We can just refer to the variable name, and that will automatically get us the latest value in that variable. We can look more closely at what the actual code would look like for creating and using a variable. To create the variable, we say int number of coffees equals 2. This creates a variable for us with this name, number of coffees, and it puts the value 2 inside that variable box. These next 2 lines use the variable that we created on the first line in order to update the screen. So we can display the number of coffees, which involves looking at that variable and checking the value inside, which is 2, so we show 2 here. And to display the price, we look at the value of the variable, number of coffees, which has 2 inside. And so we say 2 times 5 equals 10. And so the price is $10. I can easily change this code so that the number of coffees ordered is 3 instead of 2. For the box that represents our variable, number of coffees, now we put 3 as initial value inside this variable. These 2 lines of code don't have to change though because we are using the variable name. When we call display number of coffees, the value in this variable is 3, so we show the quantity 3. To display price, we look at the value for the number of coffees, which is 3, and we multiply that by 5, so that gives us $15. This is what the code change would look like in Android Studio. Currently, it's using the literal value of 2 for the quantity. Instead, let's create a variable. I'll type int number of coffees 2. So now I have a variable with the value 2. By the way, this text is grayed out and it says variable number of coffees is never used because I never referred to it again, but I'm about to use it now. Instead of displaying the literal value 2, I'm going to switch it to use the variable name. It pops up as an autocomplete option, so you can just hit enter and it fills it in automatically for you. Then this variable name is no longer gray because now we've used it in at least one place. I can do the same for display price. Instead of using the literal value of 2, I'm going to change it to be the variable number of coffees. And I just hit enter to autocomplete. Technically, I could also create a variable for the price value of 5. However, it's only used in one place, so I might as well just leave it as the literal value. Okay, now let's save the code and run it on the device. And this is what it looks like on the device. When you hit order, the quantity is 2 and the price is $10. This is exactly the same behavior as before, but now our code is more robust. Robust means that the code is less prone to errors in the future. For example, if someone else was trying to change this code and they were trying to use the quantity in many other places, then they would have to change the number 2 in so many different places. Instead, if we use the variable number of coffees, then we only have to change it in one place, and then everything will automatically update. This way, someone won't mistakenly miss a line of code that needs to have the latest number of coffees ordered. They only have to change it in one single place. Now, before you go ahead and do this in Android Studio, I want you to first practice doing it in this quiz. Go ahead and type out this line of code right below it. This line of code will create a new integer variable, and these 2 lines will use the integer variable. The reason why I want you to practice this first is that you can pay attention to every single character when you type it. Otherwise, if you miss a character, you may get an error in Android Studio, and it may be hard to read the error message. So go ahead and type it exactly as you see it. This is helping you become aware of every single character here, whether it's a capital letter or a lowercase, or if there's no spaces, or if there is a space. You'll also start getting used to the rules of Java in terms of creating a variable or using a variable. And as you learned before, every Java code statement also has to end with a semicolon. If you type this incorrectly, for example, the variable name, that would give you an error in Java. However, other things are more conventional best practices. For example, adding a space before and after operators like this. If you don't follow the spacing, it won't give you an explicit error, However, it's just better programming practice to follow these code style conventions. That way it's easier to read your code. When you're done typing this out, go ahead and continue to the next video.
All right. We are going to skip this because it's just typing this out. Does anybody have any questions about like why this context on the bottom line? Why would we want this context? Somebody raise your hand. Tell me. Tell me. Why is this context good? So, okay, so we have display price, then it says number of coffees times X. So why is that a good way to format this? Because you can see exactly what it's trying to do, right? We didn't order it so that there is an integer before the number of coffees. We basically ordered it like how we would say it, right? So I know I need to display the price of a number of coffees times the price, right? I wouldn't say the price times the number of coffees. You'd think I need to multiply this by that, right? So the number of coffees is the most important thing, not the price. So it's a good way to be able to read it. Okay, now we will go over.
This line of code is responsible for creating a variable. Remember that a variable is like this box, number of coffees with a value 2 inside. We'll talk about each part of this line of code, and then we're going to create more variables in this lesson. As you may have noticed, there are specific rules for how to declare a variable. When I say declare a variable, it means the same thing as defining a variable or creating a variable. This is the line of code that we've seen so far. It follows a very specific format for how to declare variables in Java. You could think of it almost like a formula. First, we need to say what type of data can go inside the variable. In this case, it's an integer, which we call int for short. Next is the variable name. In our case, the variable name is number of coffees, followed by the initial value. In this case, it's 2 for 2 cups of coffee ordered. And this code statement ends with a semicolon according to the rules of Java. Let's break down this line one piece at a time. The first word is the data type. This is the type of data that's allowed to go inside this variable. In this case, we only let integer numbers get stored inside the variable. As I mentioned earlier, int is short for integer. An integer is a whole number, basically any number including 0 and negative numbers that are not fractions or decimals. 0, 5, 145, all of these are examples of integers. The number of coffees ordered should only be a whole number, like 1, 2, 4, etc. We don't want the customer to order 1.5 cups of coffee. If they want more than 1 cup, they're going to have to buy 2. Then they can give the remaining half to a friend or something. As for negative numbers, it doesn't make as much sense in our case. There's no data type in Java that only allows positive numbers. So later in the next lesson, we're going to learn how to add code that prevents negative numbers from going inside the variable. The next part of the declaration is the variable name. In this case, it's number of coffees. Notice that it's spelled in camel case. It starts with a lowercase letter, and since there are multiple words, it capitalizes the start of each other word. You can think of it as putting a name tag on the variable. You can refer to this variable with this name. And here I've drawn it out like this as well. This variable box has this name. If you want to know what this value is or change it, you need to use the name. Choosing an appropriate variable name is actually up to you, the developer, depending on what the variable is used for. In this case, since the variable is storing the number of coffees ordered, I just picked this variable name. You could have picked other names like coffee count, or number of coffees ordered, or ordered coffees. Really, it could be anything as long as it's easy for other people to understand what this variable represents. When I say that the variable name can be anything, there's actually a couple of rules that Java has about variable names. Let's look up those rules now. I'm going to type in variable names Java. This first link looks good. This is the official Java documentation from Oracle. This top part talks about variables, which you can read in your infinite free time. Down here is what we're interested in. It talks about naming for variables. It can be any length, but really a really long name is not very practical. A really short name, on the other hand, can be good, but if it's only one character, like N, you might not know what N stands for. So you want to strike a balance between a descriptive name and one that isn't a pain to type out every single time. There are a bunch more details here that you can read if you want. But the main point is that if your name only consists of one word, then spell out that word in all lowercase letters, like cadence, speed, gear, things like that. If the variable name consists of more than one word, then you want to capitalize the first letter of each subsequent word, but it needs to start with a lowercase first. So gear ratio is an example, or current gear. Our example of number of coffees also follows this rule. The next part of the declaration is the assignment operator, or the equal sign. In math class, we're used to seeing things like 1 + 1 = 2, but in Java, equals means a different thing. Equal means assigning a value to a variable. In this case, we're assigning the value 2 to the variable number of coffees. Using our box metaphor, we put the number 2 inside the variable that represents number of coffees. So whenever you see the equal sign, think about grabbing what's on the right-hand side of it and putting it inside the variable on the left-hand side. We already talked a little bit about this, but this 2 here is the initial value of the variable. So you put the 2 inside this variable. Remember that this initial value must be of a valid type according to this data type. In this case, only integers are allowed in this variable. 2 is a valid integer, so it's okay for it to go inside this variable. And last but not least, we have the semicolon at the very end. So to summarize, when you declare a variable, you need to specify the data type, followed by the variable name, and then an equal sign, and then the initial value, and then a semicolon. In this case, we're creating a variable called number of coffees. The data type is int, so only integers can be stored in this variable. And we're assigning the value 2 to be the initial value of this variable. Well, you can change the variable name according to the rules we talked about, and you can change the initial value as long as it's the same data type. You can't change this data type. It needs to be spelled int, int. We're going to be learning about other data types as well, and those have to be spelled a specific way. Now, anytime you need to use a variable, just refer to it by its name, and then it will be swapped out for the actual value later when the app is actually running. Now I want you to go ahead and add these lines of code to your app. Please don't copy and paste though, because I want you to practice typing out, creating, and using a variable. Then go ahead and run the app on your phone. Make sure that when you hit the order button, this is what you see. After that, I want you to do a little bit of experimenting. Try to assign a new initial value to the variable. Then go ahead and try to assign a new variable name. Instead of number of coffees, try something else like quantity, for example. A common beginner mistake is to think that you typed it out correctly because your eyes are scanning over the whole thing really quickly. But if you look individually at every single character, you would notice that there might be a problem. This will take you some time to finish, but take your time and pay close attention to each character that you type. If you run into problems, try reading the error message. For example, this error message says, cannot resolve symbol, number of coffees. Java doesn't recognize what number of coffees is because the variable name was actually number of coffees. Hopefully you can figure it out from the error, or you can hit undo, and that sometimes resolves the error as well. Or you can go back to code that you know works, like the code that we gave you. When you're done, check these boxes and continue.
All right, let's do it, peoples. Does anybody need help or questions? Yes.
On the order button, how do I align it to the bottom? Like if I want to align it to the bottom.
That's a different question.
Giving a hand.
Should have had, well, I'm sorry we're getting ahead. So this is something that we would have gone through as part of what? Practice set 1. Did you do practice set 1?
I did. I should
Make a
have
nested.
probably just do
Yeah,
a mixed layout.
Yeah, so do a relative layout around the whole thing.
Linear layout, yeah, and then just,
Then do a line parent bottom.
because linear layout doesn't allow that.
Right.
It's only the relative layout.
Well, you can do match parent and do gravity bottom. If the linear layout is this whole, so if this is wrap content, you can do match parent, and then you could assign the gravity to the bottom. That's another possibility. Yeah, that's the button. Okay. Let's see, number of coffees given an integer name. We're almost done, guys, I swear. We literally only have 2 more things to do. 2 more things to do, and then there's homework. But that will be for later for you guys to do at home. There's only a few little short snippets. All right, everybody got it? Fantastic, fantastic. Alrighty. Going to click the things. Can I see some happy faces? Happy faces, we're almost through. I know it's late, it gets late. We go from 6:30 to 9. It's the only way we get through the content. Otherwise, this course would be like 13 weeks. That would be a long time, wouldn't it?
Any pizza left?
You can have some pizza.
Thanks. Just one. Sorry.
If you type out the code that we gave you, then when you run it on your phone, when you hit that order button, then the quantity is 2 and the price is $10. Now let's try to change the initial value of the variable. Instead of 2, let's make it 5 cups of coffee. It's just one of those days. So when we say display number of coffees, it's going to display 5 as the quantity. If we say display price, then number of coffees is 5, and 5 times 5 should be $25. So let's run it on our phone to see if that's what happens. And yes, it does. Now let's try to change the variable name. I'm going to delete this variable name number of coffees, and I'm going to change it to quantity. It's a lot shorter name, so I like it better. Immediately, the variable name is grayed out, and we get a warning that says variable quantity is never used. That's because we never actually refer to the variable quantity. We just create it, but never use it. But not for long, we're going to use it. We need to change these 2 lines of code to use the variable quantity. Right now, there's an error because it cannot resolve the symbol number of coffees, because that's not a variable anymore. So let's copy over quantity and replace those references to number of coffees with the new variable name. Cool, now there's no more errors. Let's run the app. When you hit the order button, quantity is 5 and price is $25. This is the same behavior as the last time we ran the app. When you change the variable name, there's no visible difference to the end user. The variable name is just for us developers to use when we're writing our app. Since quantity is a shorter name and it's still accurate in terms of the information that it holds, quantity of coffee cups ordered, let's continue using this variable name going forward. A crash in an app is when it unexpectedly quits and shows a dialog message saying that the app has just stopped. It happens to Android developers many, many times a day, even the most experienced ones. Sometimes the problem is due to a typo in their code or a silly mistake. Other times, it can be due to a fundamental misunderstanding of how to write the code for a certain feature. While your reaction may be to panic, the voice of reason inside your head should tell you to go ahead and try to debug the app. In this video, we're going to learn how to debug Android app crashes. To debug means to identify and fix bugs or errors in your app. If it's a really obvious error, like a Java syntax error, then Android Studio can catch that for you and show a red error before it tries to install the app on your phone. This is called the compile time error because it will fail to create any app to even install on your device. If you want to try creating a compile time error, go ahead and just delete this parentheses or the semicolon, and then you'll see the error pop up. This is like in lesson 1, when we tried to create an XML error intentionally, and then we read the error message, and then we undid the change. Other potential errors are if I try to delete this opening brace, then I'll get an error. Or if I forget this closing brace, then I also get an error. But sometimes the error only happens when you start using the app. This is called a runtime error because it happens when your app is running. Let's intentionally create a crash in the app and figure out the steps of how to solve it so that when you have a real crash, you'll know how to tackle it on your own. This is actually based off of a real crash that I saw a student encounter, so it's very likely to happen to beginners. I'll first walk you through all the steps, and then you'll have a chance to do it yourself. To intentionally create a crash in the app, I'm going to modify the main activity Java file. I'll change the name of this method to be submit orders with an S. Then I'm going to run it on the device. Everything looks fine at first, but then when I click on the order button, it crashes. It gives me the message, unfortunately, the app name, Just Java, has stopped. And the only option that I have is to hit OK to exit the app. Fortunately, we can use Android Studio to figure out what actually happened. When you run the app on your device, you may see this Android DDMS window pop up at the bottom of the screen. This shows you information to monitor your Android device, all the stuff that goes on behind the scenes that users don't see. If it's not already open, you can click on this tab down here that says Android, and that should open up Android DDMS for you. You can adjust the height of this window by dragging this arrow. If you drag this arrow to the right, then you'll see a list of devices that are connected to the computer. Right now, I only have my Nexus 6 connected. And I also opened up the Just Java app again, so that's why it's listed here. Let me drag this to the left again so I have more space to see the logs. This right-hand side is where the log messages are shown. If you click on this drop-down and say no filters, then it shows you the log messages for the whole system and other apps. It talks about things like Activity Manager, audio, sound, microphone, and all these other things. A system log is kind of like a diary that your phone keeps about what's happening on the device. We also call it logcat. If you Google for what is logcat, then a definition pops up from the Android developer's webpage. It talks about how logcat is the Android logging system where you can collect and view debug output. Going back to the logs, the most recent events happen at the very bottom here. So if you want to look back in time, you may have to scroll up to see what you're looking for. Let's change the filter back to our app, Just Java. This significantly narrows down the amount of log messages that are just relevant to our app. This makes it a lot easier to read. When a crash happens on the device, the description of what the phone was trying to do gets printed to the logs. Here's our crash in the red text color. This is known as looking at the stack trace because it traces back to where the error originated from. We know that it's our app because it's our process, which is com.example.android.justjava. For our app, the process name matches the package name, but it doesn't always have to match. We haven't really learned about processes, but essentially, this is just identifying that this is our app. Now, there's a lot of text in this stack trace, and you don't have to read all of it. We just want to scan for the information that would be relevant to help us solve our problem. We should look for anything in the stack trace that's talking about either the methods or the files that we're working on. So we'll keep a lookout for the file name main activity. So let's start reading the error message. Let's skip over this part and just read illegal state exception. Could not find a method submit order. The error message goes on to further explain why it was in an invalid state. And the reason is because it could not find a method submit order in the activity, main activity, for the onClick handler on the view class button. There's a lot of words in that sentence, and it may not make a lot of sense. But there's a couple of good clues here. It mentions button, and we only have one button in our app, so we can assume that it's probably related to that button. Then it talks about not being able to find a method submit order in the activity. Looking back at our button code, we did specify that when the button is pressed, it should trigger a method called submit order. So let's look at that now. I'm going to drag the DDMS window down and open up our activity main XML file. So here is the button XML element. And indeed, we said Android onClick should trigger the method submit order. If I go back into the main activity, then I see that submit order is no longer a method. Instead, we changed it to submit orders. So that's why the problem is happening. If I go ahead and erase the extra S, now there's a submit order method in the main activity, and the app should work again. When I run the app again and I hit the order button, and the app doesn't crash anymore, woohoo! Go ahead and try to create this crash in your app by changing the name of the submit order method. Then check the logs for the stack trace, and then read the error message carefully. Then go ahead and fix the error so that your app works again. Check this box when you're done.
So one of the most common things that we do as developers day to day is finding and fixing errors. We call them bugs because back in the day, back in the early computer day, before probably anybody in this room was born, before anybody in this room was actually born. So before vacuum tubes, there were mechanical computing machines and vacuum tube and mechanical computing machines. They were the size of rooms. They were the size of buildings. And guess what isn't the size of rooms or the size of buildings and happens to be like in every single building and room? Bugs. So you'd literally have bugs that get stuck in your switches and all your tiny mechanical things and cause shorts across wires and all kinds of things. So in order to fix the computer, they would literally have to pull the dead bugs or living ones out of the computer, thus debugging the app, well, debugging the computer in this case. So a bug literally means something that got in there, caused the problem, caused something to break, or just is causing something to not work as well as it could. And then debugging basically comes from taking the bug out. Yes?
Remember the name of the person who came up with the term?
I don't. Yes. Okay.
Maybe lady.
Yeah, I know. You know what sucks? Guess what I have on my laptop? I have a Grace Hopper sticker on my laptop. Grace Hopper looks at me every day to remind me to not suck and that I will never be as good as she was.
You disconnected video when you did that.
This is how quality this connector is at this point. It's connector. Connector. Okay, come on. Come on up. You know you wanna. You know you wanna. Come on. Come on. Okay, I have to make sure that this is like displays. Because that still looks like it's on. Displays. Yeah, that's right. This is on, so it's connected. I just think it's interesting that you used to get quite literal bugs in your code. Okay. I'm sorry, the Epson likes to be very, very fun. Sometimes it has to be turned off and on again.
Yeah, it takes like 1 hour.
Okay. Apologize for this, guys. Oh. There we go. Cool. Well, don't you die on me. Oh, no. Yeah. The Epson died.
There it goes.
There. Jeez.
Everything is
Okay. So let's see where's my. This is like so precariously far. Okay. No, we don't need homemade pan pizzas. We already had homemade pan pizzas. You're good on pan pizzas. In one village, it had a crash. So one of the most common errors that we have is called an exception error. Like, so you tried to use some Java library and you passed it bad parameters or ran it to a bad state, so it throws an exception back. There's different types. You can do a try and catch if you have an exception error that can happen. But that's more of a Java language thing than it is an Android specific thing. Right. And we're done for today. Woo! With a whole like like 7 minutes to spare so you can show me your happy birthday code and get a plushie.
What?
Show me your happy birthday card,
Oh,
code,
yeah.
and then I will give you a plushie.
So you posted something in the channels, like channels that there's some code walkthrough for Android sensors or something?
Android sensors?
On Thursday.
That's gonna be
Yeah, what's the question about it?
next month.
No, oh, no, I'm doing one on Thursday where it's just me presenting and it's here in this room. And then the one on August 4th is her, I, and another guy that will be stepping you, just like we're doing now, like to get you guys to be able to step through.
Right. Yeah. So while that's not a Dallas Android developers group meeting officially, it is still an Android group meeting. He is a member of the Dallas Android developers.
If you wanted to make it a Dallas
We
Android
could make it
you
official,
can.
man.
We don't mind.
Yeah.
We'd love to have people do stuff.
That's awesome. Random? Yes.
The only reason it's not open to anybody to create a meeting is we had like companies who wanted to sell things,
Right.
creating meetups, and that was not cool.
Right. We will take like
the,
corporate sponsorship, but like
Yeah, we'll do that, but we don't want to make you guys sit through sales pitches.
or recruiting.
Right.
Like
I mean, if they want to do actual content, it's been fine with doing a sales pitch, I'm okay with that, but not.
Or if you pay for everybody's food and all you have to say is, "Hi, I'm this. I'm hiring for X." That's fine. You gave us $100. We can give you 5 minutes.
Are you?
I need to get in the Slack. I'm not.
I intended you a long time ago. Maybe I'm just not on that.
Or for the Google developer group, for this meetup, or you RSVP?
Send it to your Gmail.
Let me see if I can.
Yeah.
Did you
So, sir,
RSVP to the Google developer group meetup?
I need to see code.
You didn't want to.
I got to see your code. In the words of Linus Torvald, talk is cheap. Show me the code. Everybody knows who Linus Torvald is. No, living. Linus Torvald.
Oh, okay.
Oh, look at all these fancy plushies.
Do you have
Not a lot of plushies. There's cyanogen, there's fitness, there's Redman, which is like Captain America. No, sorry, the Flash. There's one ice cream sandwich, like it's literally like an ice cream sandwich. Then there's basically it's an MMA basically Kill Bill. There's also Big Android barbecue plushie. Barbecue Android Okay. Great. Show me the code, my darling. Can I see it on the device? So do you see it over here? If I select. Wait, who's Oh, okay. Now let's see if it's still 6 feet.
Well, yeah, I'll show you the
And it still shows up.
This is the one.
Yay! Congratulations. Right, so you may pick from the box. There you go. Ice cream sandwich. They're totally adorable. Really nice plushie. Have you seen it? Okay. So, very important. Okay. See this on.
Yeah, we're gonna be, well, this Thursday, obviously, I think I think I know years ago. You signed up for that. I haven't years. Oh, wait. Aren't you already right, so you already signed up for me, so you don't need to register.
I gotta try it again now. Alright. A little bit. You identify why? That's why. Are you gonna fix that? And just once? Unless you can. So you got points. We'll see what you get.
Yeah, I haven't announced it yet, so.
Almost. Okay. Alright, so you gotta go through the same torture test that your brother just went through. Alright. See how this looks on a Nexus 10. Renderings.
See how you find the file. Because it still shows like you have like and then it's like
Yeah, I didn't realize they were
no, it's the.
I think your whole.
No.
Type accelerometers, maybe whatever, and then create a value.
Okay, go. Want to look at somebody else's while you wait for just read the text.
Yeah.
I haven't announced that yet, but I'll send the link. Anyway, thank you. We're doing it.
Okay. Okay, so we're gonna get 9. Alright, so right now you have the next part. So this looks like on the next one. Right? Ooh, I don't know. It's ultimate torture test. Okay. Let's see how it looks.
I'll go through like
Okay, so that still looks good, and you use both layout clearly to be able to make that. So I'll give it to you.
Yeah, I don't
Right.
But anyway,
Things.
Yes.
Right. So we have right now the next part.
So I'll get it.
This thing,
Let's look
when they're aligned properly, I don't know.
Alright, that still looks good.
Space.
And
No, you don't use that.
yeah, I'll send it.
You don't use.
Yeah, I'm gonna fuck it. You're gonna.
No.
Alright, that still looks good.
Yeah, so.
Very good.
That looks like a good idea.
That's fine. Ooh, almost got this. This looks passable. I mean, you got a little bit of overlap. But this still showed up correctly.
45.
Not scaled correctly, and then this. You still tell what it is.
Yeah.
You do have at least one perfectly scaled thing of ASCII art.
Small.
Yeah, it's scaled small, right?
Yeah.
Yep. Okay. All right. I think you got it. Yeah. Pick from the bin. Did you pick from the bin yet? Okay. Pick from the bins.
Okay. Well, that's a good one. That one.
What's your favorite? They all have labels and names. So that one's like barbecue,
Also,
and then
cool.
that one's like the girl from Local. That's MMA. It's kind of like swords and stuff. Ninja.
If I survive this thing.
Okay, Bill.
Wait, I almost done. One thing.
No, Andrew's stealing my
Oh, no.
Yeah, we'll be fine. Keeps on
Rebuild.
It's like, who's hitting me up? I didn't know I get who's hitting me up.
Okay. I
Hey, Jack? You check on
Yeah.
Hello.
Yeah.
Did you get yours going? Did you get your?
Yes, sir.
You do the target. On the target deal.
I will give you the markers. I'm sure there's gonna be some, but it should take after an hour.
reduce the amount of doing. I couldn't get it. This is what we do.
Who's messaging me where? That is the question. What's up, Jay? I'll do a lot of those people here last week. That's nice.
Yeah, wow, I meant to say this about 2 years ago because in the makerspace version and in the Google Developer version, people were kind of wondering what they should show up. When I responded to a couple and said, hey, this is a series, this is the third class, if you do want A to B, and it's all the way to Drone Studio, you can catch up. And a few people said, this is a series, I'll catch you the next round or something like that. So I
There's
don't know how
probably not
you
gonna
want
be a
it.
next round. That's why I made everything recorded.
But the main thing is just so you kind of,
Oh, yeah.
like, even on the Google Developer group, people don't seem to know that it's a series.
Yeah, I don't.
You should have thrown the first two.
All right.
Simple.
Bye,
The
guys.
first two were pretty easy. You could have thought.